don't forget to do that. Okay, yeah, so CARES we are the Center for Applied Research and Engagement Systems. We're on the campus of the University of Missouri, and we're part of University of Missouri Extension. We have been the technology provider and the data backbone for Community Commons since it launched back in 2011. And Community Commons was a labor of love. We did it all for free for a long time with the help of a nonprofit organization called the Institute for People, Place, and Possibility. They have since sort of taken Community Commons in a slightly different direction, and we're totally fine with that. They wanted to build a space that would allow for multiple technology partners and not just, CARES technology, which makes total sense. But over time, we had built out this hub network or hub structure on Community Commons, and we knew based on the work that we'd been doing with lots of groups, hospital systems, community action agencies, community foundations, the other types of organizations, that these hub spaces, they had a lot of value, and we didn't want to let those go by the wayside as Community Commons made a shift. So in knowing sort of all of those things, we built the CARES Engagement Network in early 2018, launched it in mid-2018, and we transitioned all of those hubs that used to live on Community Commons over to the CARES Engagement Network. So that's what you're seeing here now. So we have, two sides of the house. We have our map room and our make a map function. So this is hopefully what we hope is it's sort of an easy way for folks without a GIS background, without any sort of mapping knowledge, to be able to go in and make maps of their community depending on what their focus or their issue area is. So if you're a community action agency, you're going to be looking at things like poverty and housing. But if you're a hospital system, that's required by the IRS to translate community benefit, you're probably looking at a whole host of, indicators related to health and social determinants of health. And so, you're able to do that in our free and public map room. Now we have over 20,000 layers available, accessible to add to a map. And that really spans outside of those things that I just talked about, which are definitely more community development based, but also into the agriculture, economic realm, those kinds of things. And I can show you our general taxonomy covers a lot of things, and that's because CARES did start out a long time ago as more of a environment and agriculture based center on campus doing mapping for a lot of the ag and environment groups. But we've expanded and shifted our focus over the last 27 years. And so as I mentioned, though, there's about 20,000 layers in here that you can add to any map. And this really allows for people to do some exploration of different types of indicators, but also know that they are adding data that is vetted and validated. So we have lots of national secondary sources that we pull from. So things like the Census, American Community Survey, BRFIS data, you name it, we've probably got it. And then we also do pull from some state sources, depending on some of the engagements that we have with different state level databases. So that's really one side of the house, is really around mapping. We do have some advanced mapping tools, so things like I don't have any layers here, but we do have some data selection and query tools. So if you wanted to see, for example, the number of children that are eligible for free and reduced price lunch in school systems where, the Hispanic population is over 30%, you can run that query and you can get that list of schools very easily. And I can show you something like that in the demo here in a little bit. But the other side of our house is really around reporting. We did launch chna.org a long time ago, and it was something that was funded by and supported by Kaiser Permanente and some other hospital systems over time because of the shift from the ACA and the reporting requirements for hospital systems. And so we wanted to provide as robust as possible indicator report for those hospitals to be able to really assess the communities that they're serving, their hospital regions and service areas, determine what those priority areas would be, where the vulnerabilities and disparities lie, and how they could, start to formulate some driven decisions and strategies based on the information that we were able to provide through that CHNA. So because of this work, though, so these are sort of our standard products. A lot of people say, well, I want it customized, and that makes sense, right? So working with the community action agencies or with a hospital service, or hospital region, they have their own geographies that they care about. And so with like community action agencies, they cover a couple counties and they want to see data related to just those specific counties. And so we're able to do that customization both on the reporting area and in our mapping. We also have hospitals who want to bring in, EMR, EHR data or something that's more localized. And so we're able to do that as well. So if we wanted to look at things like very specific hospital readmission or 30-day readmission rates that come from EMR data, we can pull that in and de-identify and aggregate it up to either a zip code or a hospital service region level, and then they're able to see that information and again make better decisions based on that data. So to give you an idea, you can see here we have a hub directory of not all of them, but many of the hubs that we have that have transitioned over to the engagement network. So Well Connected Communities is a national 4-H project. We have a couple of hospital systems. We have a SNAP-Ed tool related just to access to food and those SNAP-Ed and WIC programs. We have a community collaboration between a hospital system and some community organizations up in Rochester. We've got some of our state level community action agency, Lehigh Valley, which is one group I was going to demo for you today. Health in Appalachia, which is a group out of the Appalachian Regional Commission that's looking at disparities just in that specific region. 22 counties across the state of Ohio that are using our system for quarterly reporting and, action plan development, those kinds of things. Colorado Food Policy Network is really we have a very specific report for them just related to food indicators and growing their food policy and food hub work there in the state of Colorado, sorry. And then things like the American Heart Association, USDA, we've got some of those projects as well. Outside of this, we do work with groups like US News and World Report to do their healthiest community rankings every year. So while that's not a direct hub product of ours, we do all of the data acquisition and analysis for them. So there's a lot of varying levels, I guess you would say, in terms of light analysis versus some more heavy analysis versus, sort of a creation of an indices like what they have. So lots of opportunities there. I can go through, so just our About Hubs page, I talked a little bit about our custom reporting systems, things like custom food assessments or CHNAs for different types of hospital systems. Custom map room, you can see here, this is an example of the Appalachian Regional Commission map room, and you can see that we've done some work just to sort of outline and highlight the region that they care about and that they're working in. And so some of those things may seem simple, but they mean a lot when you get to a map and the area that you care about is instantly zoomed in and outlined, so you have a nice output from that. We also have data upload, and so that's something that we're actually launching. We had in the Community Commons. We did a bunch of user experience testing on our data upload tools, and so we're relaunching a new version of that next week. So I can send you guys a link next week once that's launched. We should have some support materials and videos about that you can see. But that data upload is available. So if you guys were to engage in a hub, we would give you access to data upload. And what that means is alongside all of the, the indicators that we already make available in our map room, you could upload, things that are the data that you're collecting on the ground. So it sounds like you guys are doing some the primary survey. Maybe part of that survey you ask for people's zip code, and you could start to plot where you received your survey results from that, and using the data upload tool, and sort of see a heat map of where your responses are coming from. You can identify gaps of where responses aren't coming from, those kinds of things. And same with your stakeholder meetings, if you wanted to track sort of where those are, what does the attendance look like, or where people are traveling from to attend those types of stakeholder meetings. So sort of a in and out not necessarily migration, but tracking some of those commuter patterns, you could do that as well with the data upload tool. So that's, just something to think about. We also have this network map available. I'm not sure this is something that would be of interest to you guys, but this is an example of what we have in Colorado. You can see they have all these different types of food initiatives. So things like farm to school, food policy councils, double up food bucks. And so we're able to use some iconology to categorize and create a taxonomy of all of these different initiatives. And then if you were to click into this map, you would see some metadata surrounding, where is this double up food bucks location? What do they offer? What are their hours of operation? Who's involved? Is there a link to a website? Those kinds of things. So this is what we consider like a lighter version of our mapping capabilities. It's more of kind of who's doing what where, which may end up being something that you guys would be interested in depending on what your ultimate goals are. We also have within the hub data and collaboration tools, sharing tools. So we have document libraries that support a variety of file types. So if this is a place where, all of your different sort of the Hospital Conversion Foundation, the Idaho Community Foundation, Innovia, if you guys want to share meeting minutes or documents that you're working on in this sort of space, you can do that very easily. You can also share data in these spaces as well. So if there are some of those maybe more proprietary or private types of data that you're collecting that you wouldn't want to share publicly, you could do that sharing within these spaces and just have it accessible to a small group of folks. And then obviously with a hub, you get user support and training. So this is something that we know, despite how easy we try to make it, we know that there's always some training that should go along with how to use the mapping and reporting systems and how to really get the most out of the hub. And so we do offer both online and in-person training depending on, what your needs are. So that's available. And then really ongoing user support. You can reach out to us anytime. And we have a small team of folks that will reply to any sort of technical questions, or we can schedule one-on-one screen shares like we're doing here to just walk people through the mapping or reporting system if they do have any questions. So,
Jamie,
yeah.
Can I ask real quick, is that the user support limited to a certain number of users, or we kind of have a network, so what would that look like?
Yeah, so a lot of times what we'll do so the user support, if somebody were to email in a question, there's no limit on that whatsoever. We do have a limit on some of the training. Obviously, we in our typical contracts, we offer 2 one-hour webinars for a contract year or 1 in-person event. And you can always add on to that if you felt like you guys needed more. But really, we don't put any limits or hour limits on that by any means. One thing that we do try to do, especially with the data upload, because it is a little bit more of a sophisticated process in terms of formatting data tables and uploading them, and then setting your attributes and those kinds of things. So what we like to do is, if you are going to do that data upload or use that, pick somewhere between 3 and 5 people that we can spend another hour or so online with you to train you on that. And then those folks would serve as more of like moderators or administrators of that data upload tool. So if people within your network had questions or needed to use the data upload tool, it would come through your team first before it made it to us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what we'd want too, so thank you.
Yeah, and we do that also because we've had lots of conversations about, like, we feel like there's so much power in this data upload tool, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? That's and it's a lot of groups are coming up with sort of their own governance strategies around data upload. So you don't want people out there just kind of collecting data that maybe not be valid and then sharing it out with everybody in your network. And then those, somebody else uses it, but it's not really validated, so having sort of those gatekeepers to that data upload tool can also help create some of that validation and governance process around what does get shared and what goes public and what stays internal. So that's just something else to think about. So I'll show you an example of a couple of our hubs. The first one I have up here is Lehigh Valley. So this is a group, they have a hospital system, and then they have some community organizations that are involved with them. We have a lot of flexibility in terms of our designs of our hubs, because really what we've done differently from community commons, in the commons everybody had sort of that same look and feel, and we heard over and over again that people really wanted more customization. They wanted it to feel like their own. So we modularized our tools. We made them into widgets that could be embedded into these hubs, and so we could make the hub look whatever, look like whatever you wanted it to look like. So I imagine with the 3 organizations that are involved here, you guys might have some co-branding or come up with some just branding for the hub, whatever works best for you all. But just to let you know, we do have flexibility there. Lehigh felt it was important to sort of uplift the county health rankings for the 2 communities or 2 counties that they're interested in here. So you see Lehigh Valley and Northampton. So you can sort of see they have this nice little dashboard. You can see their leading health indicators around some of the BRFIS data. So these are indicators that they've selected as priority. So physically and mentally unhealthy days. They do have some related indicators here. And so these are just sort of pieces of the larger report that we built for them. They also have the ability, we have the ability to create focus areas or groups. So if you guys did have some focus areas around, physical activity, obesity prevention, tobacco prevention, whatever it may be, you could create some sort of sub-hubs or hublets. We've used both of those terms, so people could have more targeted conversations or share some more targeted data around those specific initiatives rather than in the larger hub. And then they do also have sort of this community stories functionality as well, which is just like a blog, but it's a way for them to share some of the data that they are collecting or some of the reporting that they're doing, and provide that wraparound context of how they are taking action in their community, how they're using that data to make change, those kinds of things. So let me go back up here, and I'll go into their map room. So you can see here, it looks just like the engagement network map room. It hosts all of those same data layers, and we do have the ability to limit the data that is presented in the map room. So for example, if you don't want 20,000 plus layers and you want to limit that to make it less cumbersome for your users, we can definitely do that. But just like with any of our map rooms, you can search very easily for data. So you can see here, I typed in the word poverty. We have about 308 layers related to poverty from multiple sources across multiple years of the American Community Survey. In about 2 weeks, we'll have the new ACS data available. And as data nerds, we're super excited because we finally have 2 5-year estimates that don't overlap. So we're able to show some additional change over time or trends over time information with those layers. So stay tuned for that. We're pumped. But you can easily add this to a map. And so we're in the Lehigh Valley group. You can see here again, we're automatically zoomed in to the Lehigh Valley sort of service area. I can click on the map and get metadata about, so I've added population below poverty level, percent by county, so I can actually see the values. I can see the margins of error. I can see total population for Northampton here in Pennsylvania. The other exciting part is we do have a lot of our data available at multiple geographies. So you can see here that we've got place, tract, congressional district. So I don't know if you guys are planning on doing any advocacy work with this project, but if you are, being able to go to your legislator and with a map of, kids in poverty for their district and not just for a county that they serve, can be really powerful in terms of advocacy type of work. So I can select track, and you can see here that the map dynamically switches from county level data to tract level data, which we know can be more meaningful if you are doing sort of more targeted community level work. Again, you can click and get more information about that specific track related to poverty. And I can add data to this at any time. So if I wanted, for example, to add public housing developments, I can do that very easily. And you can see that those show up on the map here as nice little blue dots. And again, I can click on those and get some information as well. I'm working from home today and my internet is a tiny bit slow, so I apologize if there's a little bit of a lag for you guys. We're supposed to get like 5 to 8 inches of snow today, so I didn't make the drive to Columbia.
It's coming across fine.
Okay, great. So again, like I had showed you, we have these query data tools. So if I wanted to query, for example, average monthly rent, less than $300, I could do that. Oh, I was clicking the wrong box there, and run that query. And you can see here, it not only highlights then all of those public housing developments that meet that criteria, that have that average monthly rent greater, I chose greater than $300, but I could also then pull a nice data table that gives me, the name, the address, city, average monthly rent, that sort of thing. So lots of possibilities there with that query tool. We also have, like I said, select data measurement tools. This mask tool is really nice. So if you guys are going to be doing any sort of, sounds like you'll be doing those stakeholder meetings, and it might be helpful to show some maps or to embed some maps in a PowerPoint presentation. And one thing that's nice about this mask tool is you can click, let me choose a smaller geography here. You can click counties that you wanted to highlight, and you could change sort of the transparency around that county. So you kind of want to see a little bit around the focus area that you're going to be working in, or you can just mask them out completely and just focus on that area, which makes for a nicer output, again, if you're going to be publishing any sort of report or doing any PowerPoint presentations. So those are all included here in the map room. They also have a health assessment tool, and so, oh, I'm not logged in, so I can't access it. Let me get to a site that I can get to here easily. Sorry about that. So what we do, let me choose New York. New York's a better example. Like I had mentioned earlier, we do provide some custom geographies then for the needs assessment, for the community health needs assessments. I'm not logged into anything today, it looks like. And so that's really helpful too. So rather than just getting county level data, you can get area specific data. So here I'm in the New York State Community Action Association. They have an assessment that's a good example because you can see here we were able to customize their regions. So every community action agency has a region name, which is helpful.
I'm on a call with Ellie.
Oh, awesome.
A webinar demonstration.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I'd like to meet before Avista, not after if we can.
Sure, that's great. Yeah. I'm sorry, I wasn't muted.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. I was just trying to give you a little bit of time.
No, the boss just peeked her head in my room. So yeah, thank you.
No problem. So here you can see that we have customized the agency regions. So rather than folks having to go in and select their region every time from a list of counties or zip codes, those are sort of pre-populated for you. So I could choose one or multiple regions to include in my report. I could also then select a subsection of those counties that I were interested in if I wanted to, or I could draw my area. So this is a tool that we could use. And so I'm going to try to type in somewhere in Idaho. And I could choose to draw, a selected area in Idaho here that I were interested in. And it would give me data just for this specific area that I have now created. So that's nice to have that flexibility as well. But I'll go ahead and just select a couple of action agencies. And so this is a good example of not only how all of our reports sort of flow. So we've updated our workflow to hopefully be a better and easier user experience than from the reports that we had on Community Commons. So you select your area and then you select which indicators you want to include in your report. So New York is a great example because they have a nice marriage between the national secondary indicators that we have available just within our warehouse, and then also some state level data that we acquired for them. So things like average daily population counts in jails, that's not something that's reported at a national level, but it is something that's available at a state level. And so we've been able to tap in and work with some state level data providers to get that sort of information and include it in their report. So I can select all or none or just a few of these indicators within population profile. So I can select just things, that I'm interested in here. And then we have these other data categories. This categorization is all customizable. So depending on, again, what you guys are going to focus on and what indicators you would want under those focus areas, we could do a lot of customization for you there as well. So I'll just go ahead and select some indicators here and go to reports. So we do have a couple of report options, output options. So we have our comprehensive report, which is, everything. It's everything in the kitchen sink. It shows data for each county. So there's a county comparison opportunities. It shows data by population groups, which allows for you to see indicators that have race, ethnicity, age, and gender breakouts. And then you have the opportunity to turn maps on and off. We have a quick facts report. We have the ability to export data to Excel. So if you did have some people who were savvy and wanted to take some of this information and bring it into SAS or SPSS or another, R or Tableau, they could do that very easily. And then we obviously have an entire appendix around source and methodology because we feel that's obviously very important to have that information about where all this data came from. So here you can see an example of our comprehensive report. We're looking at violent crime. I chose several action agencies. You can see them up here at the top, and we did provide then county breakouts. So this report location is an aggregate of those three community action agency regions that I've selected. And then we do have the breakouts for each of the counties that are included within that aggregate report location. So this is nice because it's oftentimes you can start to see some of the disparities, or you can do a comparison between counties very easily or between regions very easily this way. So you can see, for the report location, looks like they have a pretty high number around rape. You can see that Monroe County is the real culprit there. So if you did want to implement some programming around that specific topic, you'd probably spend a majority of your time in Albany and Monroe. You would spend a lot less time in those other two counties. Anytime we can provide a map and data visualizations that also allow you to understand the data better, we'll do that. We know not everybody loves looking at data tables. So people like to see those things reported in different types of visualizations. So we do that as well. And then you can always see a link back to the original source here. So you can see, again, this is something that we've gotten from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice.
James, do you mind scrolling down just to some of the health indicators there that you selected?
Absolutely. So we did implement this little nice little hamburger menu here, so you can kind of jump between different indicators. So I'll get down here to, this is mental health professionals. I've
never heard that term before, the hamburger menu.
Ah, right.
That's handy.
And now that you know that, you'll see them everywhere because they're like the little lined menus. They're especially on mobile, they're everywhere, and they're technically called hamburger menus. So there you go.
Yeah, I've seen them, but now I know what to call them.
So here we have mental health professionals. Every indicator we try to have sort of a STEM sentence, which is dynamic for the geography that you've selected. So it looks like there's 0.73 mental health professionals per 1,000 persons in this report area. The statewide average is 0.49. So those are all dynamic depending on the location that you've selected. You can sort of see the prevalence of different types of therapists here. And then we do have a nice indicator dial, and it doesn't look like we're able to show for the report or for so we do benchmarking, excuse me, for the state of New York and the rest of the United States. It doesn't look like we have this data at the United States level, so you don't see the benchmark for the national. But these are, you can turn these on and off, and they're kind of fun to play with. Again,
yeah, I did. Last year, when it was, some of this was open, I did create a region for, this area, and that includes Washington, Idaho, and that dial showed the Idaho state rate and the Washington state rate and then the regional rate, which I thought was very helpful.
It is, and we do have the ability to also to create custom benchmarking. So I again, if it may not be of interest to you, but there's some groups that use like Healthy People 2020 and other types of benchmarks, and so we can integrate those as well if it is something that you guys are interested in. So again, a map. We've got some nice data visualizations here. Looks like I select a therapist, different types of therapists in this area. Let me go back and see.
Can we customize? So it looks like the maps are kind of central with the dials and data tables, but then you have the data charts and other visualizations vary. Can we customize what we'd want to see there if we had a particular, frame that we wanted the user to view?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have a lot of data visualizations available. And so a lot of times people, they say, pick what you think is best. But we can, if you'd rather see, for example, pie charts for everything, so it's easy comparison, or bar charts for everything, we can do that. And then we do have other options besides what you see here. So there are both vertical and horizontal bar charts. We can also play with the colors, so we can do color customization as well. So absolutely.
Longitudinal data. I mean, this is a single year. Can you put multi-year stuff?
Yeah. Let me go up and pick some other indicators that I know. Income here. This is here maybe. Yeah. So you can see here, you can go back and easily sort of regenerate the report if you're like, oh, I should have picked something else, and we'll watch it populate here, and then I will pick the ones that I want. But yes, we do have the ability to do longitudinal data. And so something to keep in mind there is that, not all data lends itself to show over time, especially if if the methodology has changed. We refrain from comparing, even if it's the same indicator, if the methodology has changed, you can't really do those comparisons over time. But we do have a lot of data that does allow for that. So I'll scroll down here. You can see here, this is one example within a data table of seeing unemployment rates, but then we also do have the line charts, so you can see trends over time as well. And I think that the free and reduced price lunch, we have that by program. Oh, I thought we had that one by over time too. I think it must be a different indicator, but this is what it would look like basically, yeah, as a line chart over time.
That's great.
Yep.
Another quick question. Sure. You mentioned this work you've done for U.S. News and World Report on ranking.
Yeah.
And they featured that on their dashboard here. Do you have, ranked? Do you have visualizations where you can rank issues and localities?
Yeah. So I can follow up and send you the link for the U.S. News one. We also have another group that we're working with, ESHE, which is the Supporting Healthy Eating Environments group, and they have a rank as well. So I can send you some examples of some groups where we've done either an indice or some rankings. And we do have just in terms of showing either on a map or just in a reporting format like this, you can show rankings across geographies or between geographies. So we're working on some life expectancy data right now to show sort of rankings and disparities between zip codes as well. And it's like you select two counties and then a little graphic pops up that shows the ranking and the disparity between the two counties. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there, depending on exactly what it is you're dreaming.
Okay.
Yep.
Looks like Ellie had a question here coming up.
Oh yeah. Let me see. I gotta get my pane to show up.
Oh, can you see it?
Of entirely public.
I think, and this was on my list too, she had a question about access. What's public and is there any public access, or is it all private portal access?
We can do both, yes. You can make it all public, you can make it all private, or you can have sort of a hybrid of the two. So for example, within this NISCA site, you would have to log in to access the community needs assessment. But I do believe that, for example, they make their poverty reports, which are these little infographics and stuff. This is all publicly available. So we do have the ability to sort of have a hybrid system. Again, if you wanted to have something that's more front-facing, like an infographic, or allow anybody to run an indicator report, you could do that. But if you had some proprietary data on the back end, in the map room, you didn't want people to access that, it would be a login only sort of situation. So, yep.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Can you go back, that needs assessment, you did the comprehensive report. Can you do the quick report just so we see what that looks like?
Yes, absolutely. So let me go. So the other thing that I did want to point out too, within that comprehensive report, we just added an export to Word option, which allows for people to export that exact report. So you can export it to a PDF, obviously, but that doesn't allow you to do any customization. You can export it to Word, and that is helpful if you wanted to provide additional context or additional sort of local level stories, photos, whatever it may be, especially as you guys go through like your stakeholder meetings and you get some qualitative data from, your surveys or from respondents, and you wanted to include maybe little vignettes around each of the indicators or something. That export to Word option allows you to do that, which we're excited about, and specifically our community action agencies really like that option as well. So the quick facts report is just that. It's just a series of data tables. So you can see here, it's just all of the indicators, the different breakouts, and then you can scroll down and just see that all of the data table information there.
Okay, great.
Yep, the export to Excel is exactly what you would imagine it to be. It exports it to Excel, and then like I said, I'm not sure, we don't have it turned on here, but we have that export to Word option, or obviously to a PDF. You can also share, print these, so you can share them via social media. The maps are better to share on social media or via email. The reports, they don't play as well on social media, but you could email them very easily or print them as well. So those are all available. So I think I've covered most of the options. So you'll see if you have ever managed or have any experience with WordPress, we do build all of our hubs on WordPress. And so for some people, that's an awesome option because it does allow for you all then to have power, if you want it, over some of the content editing. So if you wanted to, again, like with Lehigh Valley, they have a blog. They're able to go in and they're able to create those community stories themselves. It's not something that our team has to do. If they wanted to post an update on their homepage, they could do that very easily without calling us or asking us to do that for them. Really what we're here for is to work with the data and to work with the reporting and the mapping tools. But we want to give you guys the power to obviously keep things fresh. And so WordPress allows us to provide you with that administrative access to do that. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. It's not required. But that's something that over the years we've realized that people want to do, and we're happy to provide that access and a little bit of training there too, if that's something that would be of value to your folks.
Great. Can you, I saw on the initial page, I have two other quick questions. One, it said the kind of the coming features included a small area estimation.
Yes.
This next year. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So we have currently the small area estimate available. And so that's really that draw my own area functionality. So what that does is let's say, for example, you selected an indicator that's really only available at a county level. We use our small area estimation methodology. If you were to select a geography or draw a geography that maybe covered a series of 2 or 3 zip codes, not county, not at a county level, we would use our methodology to take the county level data and do a small area estimate for that. So you can play with that right now within our reporting environment. The difference, or the reason that message is up there, is because basically this is a really skinny report. There's not a lot of indicators included in this report. So if you wanted custom indicators and custom areas or small areas, that's where it sort of gets into the hub, our hub realm, where we would do all of that customization for you. But it looks pretty much exactly the same in terms of the output. You'll just see that, oh, I didn't select my location.
Did you, are you utilizing someone else? I mean, this is, I'm familiar with some of the small area estimates, you know, and I know some of them are published, but it's not, there's a large margin of error, and there's a risk in,
yes,
in doing this. I mean, is this a method that's developed by you or adopted or used from some other method, or do you include margins of error as well?
We do include margins of error. It is a methodology that we created alongside when we originally built the CH&A tool. We had a work group of folks from a variety of data centers, I guess you would say, that helped us kind of, as you're saying, review the other types of small area estimate methodologies. And unlike other groups like HCI and others, we're happy to share that with you. So I can send you, we have like a 1-pager that talks about how we do it. And so I can send that to you. And if you have additional questions about it, I would be happy to connect you to Angela Johnson, who runs or heads up sort of our data team, and she can speak to it much more intelligently than I can.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's good to hear. Can you, were you able to run this report with that little triangle you did there?
Yeah, for some reason it's not, I didn't select it correctly. And so, of course, right, I'm doing a demo and.
Oh, that's what I understand it.
I'm clicking around, and I think I probably should start over is what I should do. So
I mean, it's important in this area. There's some very rural areas. One county may just have
right.
You know, literally a couple thousand people, are not, you know, not many. It's very frontier. Some of the counties are.
Mm-hmm.
So county level estimates aren't as worthwhile. And in some cases, it just,
yes,
this could be a very powerful feature if we, you know, we're comfortable with it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, and it does allow you to do sort of a cross sector as well. There we go. Should work this time. And if it doesn't, it's definitely a user error. It is.
Well, that may be too small. That may be too small of an area to tell you the truth. But you could even just go into Pullman and Moscow and see what, or Pullman, Moscow, Lewiston, or I mean.
Yeah. So you can also, I could select, for example, it'll populate some, this is a better example here than me trying to draw and failing miserably here.
Oh, you could do estimates by smaller geographies even if they're not published, you would do
correct.
That.
Yes, exactly.
Huh.
So there I've chosen a series of census tracts, and I can pull a report just for those census tracts. And you can see that they've highlighted them here, which census tracts they are. And it looks like I have even crossed state lines here. So you can see the report location would be, again, that aggregate of those census tracts. And then you can see the counties and then those state and national benchmarks.
So those ACS estimates are published by tract. Is there some that are estimated numbers that are using this methodology?
Yeah, let me go back to the indicators here.
Sorry, I'm asking some detailed questions, but
no, that's great.
Maybe some health or social ones that.
Yeah. We'll try to pull a bunch of these and see what we can find here. Yeah, and if we don't have the data or we aren't able to do those estimates, you'll see either no data or data suppressed. So that is something that we do, try to hold true to is that if the value is smaller than 5 and something would be personally identifiable, the example I always use is like teen pregnancy. If you're in a very rural area and there's only 2 teen pregnancies, likely you're going to be able to identify who those folks are.
Right.
So we definitely try to do data suppression on those pieces. Sorry, this is loading slowly here.
That's fine.
We got all these racial indicators. Let me keep scrolling.
Ellie, let me know if you have any other questions. I know you're muted, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'm dumb and, asking all the questions.
Oh, looks like she's got one more question here. No, not
Oh,
at this
she
point.
just said not at this point.
Let me uncheck some of these here. We'll just get the health ones. So I'll tell you though, like a typical development time for a hub is, we say, the minimum is about 3 months, and that's if you do it really fast and you have all of your answers, because a lot of times we get into this and people sort of want to think more strategically about what indicators to include. Are there state level databases that we want to tap into? A group like yours, you may have some conversations around branding and design because you have different partners involved. So, a minimum of 3 months, but it really, the rest of that time or however long the development time is really kind of dependent on what your needs are. But once we have a little bit better idea and have an initial sort of kickoff meeting, we can definitely develop a timeline together around what are the deliverables that we need to meet on our end, and what are the things like the content and branding and stuff that we'll need from you all.
Okay.
So
Can
here's
you,
yeah.
these Burfus are examples, or the Burfus examples are usually at county, but if you can do some estimates at the sub-county level, that's.
Yep. So you can
you calculate it.
This is the state level. So you can see here we can't calculate it. So it does say no data.
Yeah, but I thought there was one up above I saw.
Oh yeah, the alcohol consumption I think is a Burfus one, or expenditure.
That's great. I mean, and when you put in the Z-score, it shows that, gives you a relative distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity there in terms of, like I said, we're happy to share our methodology with you, and that's always helpful to kind of know how we do it and why we do it the way we do. And it frustrates us because we know that there are other groups out there that keep that stuff proprietary, and if you can't recreate it, if you can't use if you can't share our methodology and you can't recreate it, then who's to say it's valid, so
it helps give some confidence, and especially with multi-partners, and we're going to have some university people involved, and that's I appreciate that. I'm glad you offer that.
Yep.
Ellie had a question here, and it was on my question list as well. I mean, we've talked a little bit about initial costs, but can you talk about long-term and kind of sustaining costs, and if they change over time?
Absolutely.
How does your cost structure work?
Yeah, so first year initial development is always more expensive just because we're building the thing from scratch, and then there is usually a lot more involved in terms of, calls and check-in calls once we get things up and running and training. So I think I told you somewhere between like the $10,000 and $12,000 range is sort of our baseline for a hub like this. We would provide you with some custom service areas. You could choose from our indicator list, which is about 400 indicators for a report. We limit that to the first 100 would be included in that initial cost, and then anything above that we would price out in groups of, if you wanted 10 or 20, we could price it out in like smaller groups like that. Any state level indicators that you would want to include, or local level indicators, not including what you would do on your own through the data upload tool, but things that you would want to include in a reporting environment, that is on a per indicator basis. So basically those fees range anywhere from $500 to about $2,000 depending on the indicator. And the reason that we have those is because, if you're pulling something for example, from your state Department of Health. Likely it's cleaned and validated, and we might have to do some joining of some tables and those types of things, but that's not a lot of work on our end, right? But if you're doing some community level surveys and you've got somebody that's aggregating the data, or you want us to aggregate the data, it's obviously going to take us a lot more time, and the updates to that would take a lot more time, so we just price those a little bit higher. So that's something that we can discover, you know, as we go along, and add those in as you guys find them or deem them necessary. And then in terms of maintenance costs, we typically, you know, if you, let's say for example, you have a $12,000 hub, as long as you're not adding any new tools and you're not adding any new state level or local level indicators, you're going to be looking at about a $7,500 or $8,000 maintenance cost per year. And that would allow you, again, access to user support and training. So we offer training every single year that you re-up your contract with us, because we know people change, workflows change, you know, those kinds of things. So we're always happy to do training in the new contract year. And then that also guarantees data maintenance and updates. So that's one thing that we pride ourselves on, is that we are constantly updating our data. So things like Bureau of Labor Statistics, they push out data every single month around unemployment. And so we are constantly updating that. So if you come into your hub and you make a report on a Monday and we get new data on a Wednesday, and you come back on Friday and you reopen that report, you're going to know you automatically have the most recent data, because we build all of our reports to be dynamic. And so that's something that we find to be a huge value, is that you know that you're always getting the most recent data available. And so that's really what your maintenance cost is covering, is the data updates, because, you know, the ACS is a behemoth of, you know, and a lot of the indicators that people choose come from ACS, you know, and just making sure that we have QA in place to do some checking on our calculations and those kinds of things. So it's really around maintenance there.
And you have it, I mean, just from your website, looks like you have a couple dozen clients right now, or different organizations?
So that's from the hub. Yeah, the hub directory is like a small list of folks that came over from Community Commons. One of the things that we are working on right now is actually our own sort of client list or web presence, because, so for example, like the US News, they don't have a hub. So it's sort of not, it wouldn't necessarily fit in to put them here in this hub directory, right? Because they're not a hub, they're kind of a standalone site. And so we have a huge list of those types of folks that they don't have a hub, but they use our data, or we've done data analysis for them, or they have some semblance of our reporting system, but it's on their own platform. So I can send you a broader list of our partners. These are just folks that we, like I said, that we transitioned over. These are also people that have been interested in connecting more to like-minded groups, you know. So for example, we've got all of our community action agency groups on here, and they sort of talk to one another, obviously, about, because they have similar reporting requirements. Actually, Rochester and Lehigh talk a lot. They're close in geography, but they're very similar in makeup in terms of like having a university partner, a hospital partner, and then community partners. So we do try to make some of those connections with people, and we're still sort of just building out a better system for helping people find one another, I guess you would say. So no, this is just a very small subset of the folks that we work with.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Ellie has a question.
Oh yeah. Oh, yes. So we do have, we do provide analytics to all of our hubs as well. And so, you know, for example, I send like a monthly report to the ARC folks, so this Health Disparities in Appalachia. They launched their Health Disparities report last year sometime, and really wanted to see metrics around, you know, how many people are visiting the site, how many people are accessing the report, what types of data layers. So that's something else that we can give you, is like, what's the most popular data set to add to a map on your site? You know, what are the things that people are interested in? So we usually send those out on either a monthly or a quarterly basis. A lot of times if people are doing a launch, like what Health in Appalachia did, they want to see numbers frequently, and then it starts to taper off, and they're okay with seeing that quarterly. So I can send you an example of one of those reports. We do rely heavily like on Google Analytics to give some of that information to us, but then we also use sort of a system of tracking what we consider pings to our databases to pull sort of that report generation and the map layer information into some of those reports. So I can send you that.
I think that would be great. I mean, that helps us justify the cost, especially in out years as it would go along.
Yep.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, go right ahead. That's no problem.
Well, I think that, I mentioned that we have about 10 counties for this project, but, the Idaho Community Foundation has an additional, 30 or 40 outside this central region, and we have, additional 10 or 15. How much of that price was geography dependent? And if we wanted to add regions, in the future, what kind of, how would that change?
If we're only adding counties, it would be no change in cost because it's what we consider a standard geography. If you have hospital service regions that are non-standard geography, right? So it's a series of zip codes that we would apply as a layer or as a non-standard geography to the reporting system. Those would be priced out depending on how many there were. So if you had, a typical hospital, we'll say has, 12 to 20 hospital service regions, you're probably looking around, somewhere between $4,500 and $6,000 to do the work to develop those regions and to get them into the reporting environment. But if you're looking at just expanding into additional counties or county level, it wouldn't be any additional cost.
Okay, that's good to know. And actually, that's good to know because we have 9 hospitals in this area in Southeast Washington, North Central Idaho. And if they wanted to jump in and do some of their own analysis by their hospital referral region, that would be a great option too if they contributed in that way.
Yeah. And one other thing that I'll sort of throw your way, but you can take it or leave it, is that we are actually in the process of developing these types of hub systems for both the Washington State Community Action Partnership and the Idaho State Community Action Partnership. So I don't know how much you do or interface with community action agencies, but it could be an interesting, there could be some interesting overlap between what they're building and what you guys are building too. And we could potentially create some efficiencies among you and them in terms of some of these systems as well. So
yeah, this project, I think Ellie would probably concur, is quite a bit with community action agencies. This project in Whitman County, where Washington State University is, the community action agency and the hospital were involved in developing the survey that we're going to kind of use for the primary survey data collection. And so they've been really engaged, and they were able to develop some great coalitions and some, pull in some federal funds as a result of those coalitions and the data they had. So the community, and then I know in Spokane, the Community Action Agency here called SNAP is really progressive and, data oriented. And that would be, we'd love to hear more about that, I think, in the future.
Yeah, so we're just working with both of those states at the state level, like association level, to build some reports that are just basic CNAs or community needs assessments for their reporting requirements. But, as we sort of continue work with them and with you, like I said, especially when it comes to, I'm thinking when it comes to state level data acquisition. So if there are any of those, state level data that you would want to get from the Washington, State Department of Public Health or something like that, that would be useful to the community action agencies as well. There could be some cost sharing or maintenance, sort of sharing fees over time, because we definitely wouldn't want to charge you for the same data set that we're pulling for Washington or for Idaho community action agencies. So.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. And I just want, I know our time's about up, but we do appreciate your organization's openness. And then, I was able to look at some data, that we were in your trial period last year for this region. And it's just helpful to know what things look like and what some of the options are. So
Yeah.
it's a very impressive tool. It's very customizable.
Yep.
And I know Ellie said this was great. So, well, I think it sounds like we should plan for, if we go this route, for 3 to 6 months of kind of development and, build out. And this is a year project, so that means we're going to have to make a decision relatively soon, so we can have something together for this, what we're talking about in this, I guess it would be more of the fall where we have these community forums.
Yeah. Yeah. And just so you know, we can, once you make a decision and we can put together an estimate document. So we like using estimate documents instead of formal contracts because we are part of the university. And if we were to go through a formal contracting process, we would have to charge you an extraordinary 33% indirect fee. And we don't like doing that either.
Sure.
So basically it would just be an estimate document that you would agree to, and then we would invoice on a mutually agreeable schedule, so quarterly or annually, whatever works best for you guys. And so that would need to come from my director, Chris Fulcher. So whenever you guys are ready to move forward, just shoot me an email, and then we can put together an estimate document for you for like a base hub. And we'll just put some wording in there that if you do decide to include, local data, state level indicators, that it would just be a per indicator cost, and we would price those out individually as we move forward. Or like the service areas and that kind of stuff, we could price out individually as we move forward.
Okay, but standard geographies are the county zip and census tracts. Is that?
Yes, yeah, those are all standard. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Well, I would expect that by early February, I'm going to be gone at the end of this month, and we have to lock a few other things down, but I'll get in touch with you and let you know where we're at, either way, about our timeline and next steps.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. And if, I'll follow up. So I have a couple follow-ups here on the small area estimate methodology. I'll send you some examples of analytics, and then our larger partner list as follow-ups, and then I'll send you the recording too of this. So,
okay, fantastic. That'd be great.
Okay, sounds good. Well, you guys have a good rest of your Friday and a really great weekend.
You too. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.